Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock. I'm Sophie and this is Gracie.
Uh,
Thanks for coming on all the
Absolutely.
way from the Mississippi or
All
wherever
the way.
you are. Gracie, tell us where you're from. You have a little brother. Some fun
Yeah.
facts here.
Okay, so I'm from Petal, Mississippi.
Mhm.
And I go to school in Ellisville, Mississippi. It's like literally 25 minutes from my house. It's perfect. But I
That's
play softball there, at Jones College. And then I have a little brother. He's 13. We're best friends. We've never fought. People don't believe that, but we're actually our best friends.
that's sweet.
And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Um, you know what I'm just now thinking is I got a package. Somebody was like, "Hey, you have a package at camp." And I went to go pick it up like last week
Huh?
and it was not there. But it was from Petal, Mississippi.
I bet it was
And
my mom.
so but I bet it was for you and they just got us confused.
Probably. Maybe.
Because they were like, "Oh yeah, it's for Sophie," but I don't know anyone there. So it was
Maybe
totally
it's my mom for real though.
maybe it was your mom trying to send you a package.
Maybe. Or
I
send
don't
you a
know. We'll,
package.
we'll never know. Anyways, Gracie and I worked camp this summer together, obviously. And I remember the first time she walked in, we were all like in a meeting for training, and she comes in, and it was so late at night,
Oh,
and she was in her softball uniform because poor girl had to come straight there. And I was like, oh dang, she's cool. And that's where it started. And then we just became fast friends, and it was really sweet to just watch her love and serve this summer. She's tenderhearted and kind, but she's also like so fierce is the word that I think of when I think of her. She loves fiercely. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear more of her story and what she learned this summer and just soak up all the wisdom that comes from her. So thanks for coming on again. And um, we'll start with share maybe something that you learned this summer or that stood out to you or something like that.
I think there's really two big things that stood out to me this summer that I learned. One of them was not to put God in a box. I think
Mhm.
oftentimes that we kind of were like, if he doesn't work in this way, then he's not going to move or he's not going to work. But I think that's not really true. Or we think that like, oh, he can't move in this situation. I think for one week, it was, I think week 3 or 4, but there was a lot of brokenness in my group. All of them knew who Jesus was and they were all saved, but they were just walking through a lot of things that I've never had to walk through. And I don't know, I was like, Lord, there's no way that they need to be in here with me. Like there's other people who are better like equipped for these things for them. And I was like, I just don't think that like they're gonna get anything out of this group. But well, we went through the whole week, and at the end of the week, when they do their evals, a lot of them wrote that for the first time they felt peace. For the first time, they felt seen and loved in Bible study, and like that was me reflecting. I was like, Hey Lord, like at the beginning, I put you in this box that there's no way you could help me help them, but like look at what you did and look at how you can do it. And I think it's really important just to see through the summer. It wasn't just that instance. There were so many times that I was like putting him in a box, but then like he's like, "Hey, like you can't confine me to a box. Like I'm the Alpha, the Omega. Like I'm gonna reign forever, and I'm gonna work in your life the way that I need to work." And I think another thing that was really big this summer was learning how to be fully dependent on him. So obviously camp is go 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 24/7, and you need energy 24/7. And by week 4 and 5, you don't have that energy. But I think it's really cool that like obviously I prayed at the beginning of the summer like, hey, give me energy to sustain me. And obviously he did through the entirety of the summer. But also like there were times that I had to like look back, Lord, I have nothing left in me. Like I need you to work in me. And so it kind of caused me to be dependent upon him. Like at all times. So if he would have just gave me energy the first time I prayed the whole summer, then like I would have forgotten about him and his character. But like depending on him, it showed me that like he gives you what you need. I think about in Matthew whenever the woman came and she her daughter was demon possessed and she asked for him to heal her, and he said some pretty harsh things to the woman, and a lot of things I think a lot of times it would have turned us away. Our faith wouldn't have been strong enough. But he told her that why would he give the dog the child's bread? But then she said, but whenever the child eats, doesn't the dog eat the crumbs? And I think like that's us. Like the Lord gave us little increments of energy to get through the summer or capacity to get through the summer. And then like we had to come back to him and like thank him for what he gave us, but also know that he will provide more. You have to keep coming back like just to him and be dependent upon him.
That's so good. I have a lot of thoughts of that, but one is like I remember vividly one day I was like, "Oh, I can't do this."
Hmm.
I was so tired and exhausted, and it's like spiritually exhausting and physically exhausting. And like, I just remember I was having to pray like every hour. I was like, Lord, would you help me through this? And that, like being that dependent was specifically this one day that I remember. And now I'm like, oh, the Lord had to remind me that in my weakness, He's made strong.
Hmm.
And His name was known deeply that week because I was out of the energy and the gas that I had in myself, and just like stepped into like who the Lord was. And so I think that's really sweet. Um, and there is like a humility that has to come with what you're saying of like, okay, we want to become dependent on the Lord, but how often we want to be like hyper independent, and like figure it out by ourselves or like muster it up and do it, when we really just have to stop and abide and allow Him to be God, which then goes to your first point of like putting Him in a box. And I am like awful at that. I'm like, oh, that doesn't seem possible. And the past like 8 or so months, Ephesians 3:20 has like been what I'm holding on to, and it's that He can do more than I can ask or imagine, exceedingly more and abundantly more, because He is God and I'm not. And since He is God and I am not God, I need to let Him be God. Um, and like I don't have to be, and that's good. And so like obviously the camp environment puts that straight in our face and is like, here's this situation or here's this or here's this trial, and I'm like, I have no clue what to do. But then like also in our day-to-day lives now, or for the listener who's not, didn't have to experience or didn't get to experience camp in that way, like how can we let God be God and stop putting Him in a box? And it's hard to do because it takes surrenderance, and surrendering is scary. But that's beautiful. And I think those are two really good reminders just for anyone of like, okay, how can I not put God in a box today? And then how can I be dependent on God today? It's like that daily bread. He's gonna give enough manna for today, and we have to trust Him to do that. And so I think that's really sweet and super like relatable in a lot of different aspects. Okay, sweet. So tell us now, how did you come to know the Lord? What was that journey like? And then where is that now?
We grew up in the church. We went every single Wednesday and Sunday. I knew that like when I woke up, like, hey, we're going to church. It wasn't like never an option for my family. And I remember seeing my mom like pursue the Lord, and I was like, oh, she just enjoys doing that. You don't have to do that to know Christ. And I think I
Hmm.
kind of had the hollow like idea that if I'm like, hey, I believe, and like that's my salvation, and I can like do whatever I want the rest of my life, and I'll get to go spend eternity with Jesus.
Hmm.
Obviously that wasn't the case, and that wasn't like how it was revealed to me. But I think that's just like kind of where my mind was.
Yeah.
But when I was 8 or 9, I began to play softball, travel softball. And so that constant meant that we were on the road for softball, and like that's what we were pursuing. And at first, it was like really fun. And obviously, it still is really fun for me. But
Hmm.
it became my identity and my priority, and it was my joy. And like, if I didn't do good at softball, then like I wasn't going to have a good day or a good week. And like, I became fully dependent upon softball and like what that did for me, not the Lord. And
Hmm.
also, I didn't see anything wrong with that because I just all I ever knew was softball, and so I was like, "This is like the Lord gave me this, so like, that's sweet of Him, and I'm gonna get to like play this forever." But going into my seventh grade year, I went through a really tough back injury, and I couldn't play for a year. And this was a really dark time in my life because I all I ever knew was softball, and then it was taken away literally overnight, and I was like, "Why am I here? What's my point? What am I supposed to do now with my life?" I remember we were obviously in church still, and I went to youth group, and I just was so bitter towards the Lord, and I was like, I was so mad at Him because He took away something that I loved so much, and I just didn't like I couldn't see any joy. I didn't have any joy. Really just confused and lost. But I was finally able to get back into softball. I was able to play again, and I went to try out for the middle school team in my 8th grade year after COVID, and we got a new high school coach. Her name was Coach Hogue, and I remember my mom told me that she wanted to pull me and my best friend up at the time to play on the high school team. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, on the Lord, He's giving me a gift because He took it that way from me for years. He's like, I'm going to repay you in this way.
Hmm.
Also, that's not the case, but that's kind of just what I thought of.
Yeah.
But during that full year, my 8th grade year, just Coach Hogue, she is probably one of the most godly people that I know. She poured into me, and the
Hmm.
team, and she told us that like softball, it isn't who we are. It's just something that we get to do softball, and that's a joy, but it's not eternal. Like in 10 years, we won't be playing the sport together. And I was
Hmm.
like, she's crazy. I am. They may not be, but I'm gonna be playing like till I die. But obviously, that's really not the case. But she poured into me, and then her daughter Kinley Hogue, we're still best friends today. But she just lived out her faith so well in high school, and what it like to be a guy who God called her to be, and that was really cool to see. And then my youth leader Mandy, she poured so much time into me. And then my mom, she had so many prayers for me that I didn't even realize. But she literally had the whole church, like the whole women's group praying for me, and I had like literally no clue. But that summer, I went to camp at Union Fuge, and it was quite literally the best week of my whole entire life. Like I will never forget the first time at camp because it's just so different. And Sophie knows what it's like, and it's crazy. But kind of the whole week, I felt just like this guilt and this weight on me. But I was like, what is this? Obviously, it was conviction, but I didn't know that at the time. And we were sitting in service one night, and the pastor, he said, if you're in a spiritually dry season, that's okay. But if you're in a spiritual drought, you need to get help. And I was like, that's me. Like I'm in a spiritual drought. I don't know anything about who Jesus is besides like the basic things that he died and he rose for me. Um, and then that night, whenever we were praying, he said, close your eyes, obviously. And he was like, if you're sitting in this room and if you die today, you don't know if you will go to heaven. Like, he was like, you need to stand up. And I was like, that's me. So I stood up and I went and had a conversation with my youth leader, and I got saved that night. And I would love to say that since then, it's been unicorns and rainbows, and it's been the easiest thing walking to the Lord, but it's not. But I know that I can be spiritually content with where I'm at because I know that He will be there, and no matter what I'm walking through, He's beside me and He is for me and everything. That's really sweet. So fast forward, I last year was my first year in college. I was a freshman, obviously, and I got to play softball in college, and that's really cool to me because I get to use something that was my identity and use it to show who my identity actually is in now, which is the Lord. And it's cool to see how the Lord use something so broken inside of me, and now I get to like use that to glorify His name. But in October, I went through some pretty scary health troubles. I quit breathing essentially pretty much on the softball field. And something in my lung exploded and there was air on my heart. And the doctor was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, you may die, you may not. I don't really know. And like hearing that as a healthy 18-year-old, that was really scary to hear. And I was like, what do you mean? But it was fine. I was fine. I'm fine right now, obviously. But I got released to play softball back in January. And I remember being in left field and I literally have panic attacks every single day. And I was like, what is wrong with me? And I kind of pushed the word away. I was like, no, he doesn't, like, this isn't right. Like, I need to be, like, I can do this. And obviously, I couldn't do that. But I went to the doctor and they said I had anxiety and I got put on medicine. I started going to see a counselor. And that sounds kind of scary to say out loud, but it's kind of just the truth. But through that, I learned just who he is, and like he is for me even in my weakness and my brokenness. And like he never quit walking beside me just because I had anxiety. Like it wasn't that the fact like, hey, you're a Christian, you can't work through these things, but like it's the reality. But like I know that I had the Lord to sustain me through those things. But also I just got my placement for camp and I was going to obviously NGU, and I was like, I'm not worthy enough to go work here. Like I have these things. Like there's no way that like I can go there and minister to these students whenever I have this like burden on top of me. But a lot this summer I saw that I preached to my students that like the same God, like you get to worship God, and like He is your Savior and He is for you, and no matter what you're walking through, like He is going to be with you. But then like He's also my Savior. Just because I was going in as a staffer, like my life isn't perfect. Nobody's life is perfect. But if so, like the cross would have been necessary. So like I really had to learn just that like to be vulnerable in that space, because that helped a lot of my students this summer. But also it helps me in knowing that hey, I'm not okay, but like I know that with you, I'm gonna be okay, and I can be content with where I'm at because I know that like your spirit is working through me and beside me, and I don't know, it's just a really beautiful thing to see, and just I don't know how the Lord has just redeemed me and what was broken inside me, and I get to use that to share His good news and how that's worked through me, and I don't know, it's just really sweet to be a part of, and just shows how kind the Lord truly is to us.
Gosh, that's beautiful. Um, I think I wrote down the question that you said that like it's okay if you're in a spiritually dry season, but it's not okay if you're in a spiritual drought. So like, what do you do in there? And I think the difference in a spiritual dry season is like, okay, you might not feel it, but you're still showing up. You
Hmm.
might not. It might be more of like a hidden season, but a spiritual drought is like you're not doing anything about it.
Hmm.
Um, and like one day at camp, someone was like, "It's okay if you're not okay, but you don't have to stay that way."
Yeah.
And I think that's where the line is like, okay, it's okay if you're having a season where you're wrestling with the Lord, or maybe it just feels a little more dry, or the Lord's pruning you and it's not like as flashy, like that's okay to have those seasons. But if you're in a season where you're not pursuing him at all and you're not chasing after him and it's just like dead, then it's like that's where we have to take steps to actually seek the Lord. And the same, it's like it's okay not to be okay all the time. It's okay not to have it all together, because when we don't have it together, it makes us dependent, which is what you were saying at the very beginning. Um, but we don't have to stay in an
Mhm.
awful place
Yeah.
forever. Like we can make steps out. And so I think it's really sweet that you did that. Just as like the Lord, like, took something, but then he gave it back. And um, in softball, you got to learn like this is not my identity, but this is something I can use to glorify God. And like how often the Lord gives us gifts, and we can use them for selfish reasons, or we can use them to point people back to Jesus, which is now what you get to do on your team, and to love your teammates well, and point them back to the greatest love of all, which I think is just so beautiful and kind of the Lord to use us in that way. Um, but then also in that like terrifying health scare of like, oh, am I going to die? Am I not going to die? What's happening? And then I think that's like what trauma of where you go back to the same spot. And when you were in left field, you're like, oh, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. Um, and I think that it's sweet in a way that that was this year. And then you went and you served the Lord in mighty ways. It wasn't like you got fixed before you were willing to go.
Mhm.
And I think oftentimes we push off serving or saying yes to the Lord or being obedient to what He's calling us to because we're like, oh, I need to get this cleaned up first.
Mhm.
Or I need to stop struggling with this. Or maybe once I get off of medicine, I can do that. Or this. Or like, we're always just pushing it off to the next thing. But that just shows that we're relying on ourselves and we think we're the ones in control and we're putting God in a box. Um, but then, like, it's like, okay, but what if the Lord wants to use our struggles?
Mhm.
And the testimony that he's given us and the trials um, to glorify his name because he does work all things for good. And so I think your story is just that picture of we don't have to get cleaned up to go to the gospel. We don't have to get cleaned up to accept Jesus for the first time. We go broken, and he's the one who's saving us. He's the one who heals us. But then also, like in seasons that are just hard, and when we have struggles, we don't have to be like quote unquote like healed from everything before we can go and be willing to say yes to Jesus and what he's called us to do. And so I think I'm just really encouraged by that in your story of it not being a long time
Yeah.
since you started that struggle,
Mhm.
but you're still willing to say yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, can you tell me a little more about, you said your coach was like pouring into you. So what did that kind of look like in high school of you had this knowledge of like who God was, you're watching your mom pursue Jesus, but you weren't really willing to do that. Um maybe what are some things she did for you to point you back to Jesus? So then maybe the listener is an older girl who needs to do that for somebody younger. Or maybe it's a younger girl listening who's like, oh man, I need somebody to point me back to Jesus. What qualities are we looking for?
Yeah, so my eighth grade year, she was the coach, and I just remember like prayer was a big thing for her. We did that literally every day, but it wasn't just like the Lord's Prayer. Like, she like prayed like for us specifically what we were walking through and like seasons of life that we were all in. Because obviously it's seniors to eighth graders, like
Right.
18 to literally 13. Like there's a big difference in ages there. So she was there like specific in that, and then also she would just like send us encouraging messages every morning from her devotional she was reading, New Morning Mercies, and it encouraged me to get New Morning Mercies and to start reading that. So I like when she's talking about it, I was like, oh hey, I know what you're talking about because I read that this morning too. Um, and then just the way that she lived her life, not only at softball, but also like at church and in her job, because like obviously she coached softball, but also she had a job like during the day, like at school. And just seeing her like walk through that was really encouraging to see. Also she went to our church at the time, and just seeing the way that she served so well in church was really encouraging. And it was good to see, but also I remember my ninth grade year, she was also the coach. And hi, buddy. My ninth grade year, she was also the coach, and she told us this story that even her daughter didn't know who was on the team, and it was just kind of really cool to see her vulnerability with us, but how the Lord like worked through her and is using her. And then like whenever we would have days, she would make us go lay in center field and stare at the sun and say things we're thankful for and how the Lord has provided for us. And I think it's just she knew we were playing softball, but also she knew that we were so much more than softball, and she like got to know us as a person, not just as a player, and like that was important to me to like feel seen and known in that. But also like she would like check in on me like, hey, how can I pray for you this week? And it wasn't like a big group text; it was like just to me. And even she sent it to every single person on the team. Like she still sent it to you individually, and like that was important to feel seen and known and loved. And like she invited us to go to church and do these things and go to FCA, and just the way that she just poured into us was like so amazing. And like even after she quit coaching after my ninth grade year, shipped to a higher admin position, but like she still checked on me at softball, and she still made me like tell her that like how I was putting Jesus before softball and like, what I was doing to fill my cup up in the morning, and like just the way that like to see her like continue to walk with each of us through each season was like really encouraging. And like she still talks to me to this day and how college is going and like softball, and like making sure that I'm still like pursuing Jesus, and like I'm using my platform to share the good news of him. So yeah.
Gosh, that is really sweet. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's like she lived by example and pointed you guys back to Jesus
Yeah.
in her actions. And so I think that's really sweet and encouraging. And so for the listener, maybe you need to be that person for somebody. And you don't have to be perfect. She had her own struggles and she was willing to be vulnerable with Gracie and the other girls in that. But all of that pointed people closer to Jesus. And so there's always somebody younger than us in the faith that we can point to and encourage.
Absolutely.
And she loved Gracie well, and then Gracie was able to then go and love others on her team and at camp and in her school and in her job and in her family. Um, well, all because one person was willing to step out in boldness and do more than her job. Like her job was to coach softball, but she was willing to do more than that. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing. Well, Gracie, thank you for coming on and sharing your story and what you learned this summer. Um, your life is such a testament of the Lord. Just continue to pursue you and redeeming you. And it's so beautiful. And I'm honored to be your friend.
Honored to be your friend. I'm gonna come to Furman soon.
Yes, please come to Furman. We can't wait. Weston, do you want to come say something to the podcast? No, he got nervous. I'm babysitting and he woke up from his nap, but here he is. Do you want to say, see you next time?
Yeah.
Say thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, we'll see y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.